Welcome to The Podcast, the Human Experience Podcast, where we explore the depths of spirituality and our own personal journeys and experiences. I'm Dr. Carlos Garcia.
And I'm Supna Doshi. In this space, we'll reflect on the wisdom of some of the most profound spiritual teachers, from Eckhart Tolle to Ram Dass, Wayne Dyer, Michael Singer. Together, we'll dive into their teachings and share our own insights that have guided us on our own paths of self-discovery.
Each episode will feature inspiring clips from these masters, weaving them into our own reflections and conversations on how spirituality has enriched our daily lives, deepened our understanding of ourselves, and led us to a more meaningful experience.
So, take a deep breath, open your heart, and join us on this journey of exploration. Welcome to The Podcast, the Human Experience Podcast. So, take a deep breath, open your heart, and join us on this journey of exploration. Welcome to The Podcast, the Human Experience Podcast.
Yesterday, I'm sitting at the table with just like the stellar of the stellar, right? Like Navy pilots, this woman who's a psychologist and swam the English Channel, these people that have like MBAs from like Harvard, right? Just like amazing, like people that have done amazing stuff. But when you talk to them, they're both humble about it, but also don't see themselves accurately. And so I'm always intrigued by why it is so hard for us to see ourselves accurately. And by that, I mean like the good in ourselves, right? Like how we're easily able to see the good in others, but it feels so hard to see it within ourselves. As a psychologist, I know that there are certain environmental factors that sort of lead to that, and other factors that I think sort of contribute as well. But sometimes I wonder if it's like something almost like intentional or that we're supposed to have or carry around, or do we ever move past this aspect of us that, just kind of pushes for more, right? Pushes to grow, to learn, to expand. The more I study this and the more I try to understand it, I think that the more complex it gets.
Well, I always like to use a metaphor of an orange. I love the orange. Perhaps living in Florida is why, but an orange is a simple metaphor. You take this orange and you squeeze it as hard as you can squeeze it, and you ask yourself, what will come out? And what comes out when you squeeze an orange? Orange juice. Never, no matter how many times you squeeze it, will apple juice come out. There's no mistakes. You'll never get grapefruit juice out of this thing, ever. The only thing you'll ever get out of it is orange juice. And the next question is why? Why when you squeeze an orange, as hard as you can squeeze it, does orange juice come out? And I asked that question up in Toronto one time. There's a little girl sitting right in the front row. She said, that's dumb. She said, that's what's inside. It has to come out. I said, well, that's the answer. You are really smart. And she smiled and she thought that was great. But that's the truth. The reason that orange juice comes out when you squeeze it is because that's what's inside. Now you extend the metaphor and someone squeezes you. That is, someone says something about you that you don't like. Someone behaves towards you in a way that you find offensive. Somebody does something or says something to you that you feel hurt by. And out of you comes anger, hatred, bitterness, tension, fear, anxiety, stress. And immediately you say, the reason that comes out of me is because of how he said it, or the way that she said that, or because they did that. But the truth is, the reality is that what comes out is what's inside. And if you don't like what's inside, you can change it.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I think that hits for me on a lot of different levels, both personally and also with some of the experiences that I've heard around me. I'd love to hear kind of your personal experience with imposter syndrome. I think for me, there was always this, so I'm an Indian woman, raised by my parents, and in the Indian culture, like, you really need to have a boy because the boy is the one that carries on the lineage, et cetera, carries on the family name. My parents never raised me to believe that I was anything less than because I was a girl. In fact, my dad was the one who always said, you can do whatever you want. And I think that did help in a lot of ways when I tried something new. I wasn't really afraid to fail because at least I tried.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that small experience like continues to grow as in the professional world, like I kept getting better and better jobs where I led more people and was responsible for more things. I had to walk into a room, usually with a lot of men,
Mm-hmm.
and be like, no, this is what we're doing and this is why we're doing it. And what constructive feedback do you have to help, elevate this plan? And I think that for me personally, it's just practicing that over and over and over again to where it's not that I don't feel it, it's just that I don't let my mind think it.
Why do you think that is, that you don't let your mind think it?
Because it would totally take me down. It would totally say, Sapna, get out of the room. What are you doing there? Or any number of those things. And one of the like really significant tools that I used to help me through that was, when I started my company, every project that we did, I took group pictures and I printed those pictures and I put those up on my wall. And I have 50 pictures on my wall to remind me these are already the things that you've done.
Mm.
So anything that you try to do, you're going to be just fine. I mean, whether you succeed or fail is no matter what, it's going to be a learning. But I think that the imposter syndrome, like I've heard people say, yeah, they can't walk into a room with a bunch of strangers. It's just too hard. Or they can get through the door and then they'll just stand there. And that was totally me for the longest time.
Yeah, I think part of the way that I understand it or speak about it is that imposter syndrome, there's a mismatch between your perception of yourself and sort of reality sometimes, or even others' perceptions of you. I think the way my imposter syndrome has shown up is I grew up in a home where there was a very high expectation for behavior and very little tolerance for mistakes. And so you derived your sense of like connection or love or value based on how you were acting and how well you were doing. Right. That was my father. He was just very impatient man, and quick to sort of point out how you were screwing up based on his standards, right? So right or wrong, but based on his standards. A mother who like always felt the need to point out to you how you were going to screw something up, how you were doing it wrong, blaming, right? Like you see that happen to you because, right. So just very opinionated in her expectations of how she wanted you to be. And then a brother who, for anybody that has a sibling that's the golden child, they can probably relate, right? Like this, he just never did anything wrong, had a job by the time he was 15, paid for his first car, right? Like he's just golden child, right? And so those were the factors in place as I'm learning to navigate the world. The messaging that I'm getting is like, you're not doing it right. And so I think that sort of implanted in me unconsciously this like internal narrative that I just, I'm inadequate. And so, that's just kind of the voice that I have to feel like I'm constantly trying to overcome.
I feel like no matter what conversation we have, it always goes back to parenting, the way we were raised.
Yeah.
But I'm curious if you feel your parents were the way they were because that's how they were parented.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it wasn't like they were out to get me. That is just the nature of how they were raised, right? I mean, with the same sort of examples and teachings.
Yeah. And I find that in a lot of ways, when you become a parent, you either are like your parents were parenting you, or you consciously make a change to not parent the way that you were parented.
Ram Dass talks about this, this other sort of psychological component that when we come into the world, we are essentially helpless beings, right? Like if you look at other species, they, learn to walk within a few hours, usually within a couple of months, they can go find their own food. We're very dependent on our caretakers for a large majority of the first several years of our lives. And from the vantage point of a helpless being, a child, you're constantly looking around at the world from a lens of inadequacy because you're looking around at people who know how to maneuver and master certain things and you don't. There's often this kind of lens for us in our lives until we develop our sort of confidence around, certain young ages of development where we're kind of always looking around and feeling less than because we haven't mastered certain things. So there's that layer to it as well. And then I think another sort of big component is the cultures that we grew up in. Like growing up here in the US, the emphasis very early on in our lives is about how good you can be. And if you're not the best, then you're a failure. And your worth is, and I say this often, but your worth is so heavily attached to how much you achieve, how quickly you achieve it. So I think for me, imposter syndrome is just a product of all of these things where when somebody in a truly authentic and honest manner points out to me something good about myself, it's so hard for me to internalize.
I think even though we've had different upbringings and different experiences, and my work with imposter syndrome, I think is of a different shade of gray, but that concept of internalizing somebody saying something good about you, that resonates very deeply. I mean, anybody can say, I guess with the exception of if somebody says I'm a good mom.
Mm.
Then I'm like, damn straight, I am a great mom.
Yeah.
But anything else, it's like they're talking about somebody else.
Great. I'm so glad that you said that. Right. Like if someone tells me I'm a really great psychologist, like I can own that. Right. That's a part of me that my internal narrative lies in. Like, yes, I feel confidence and in that aspect of myself. I think it's when they speak to the parts of me that I don't fully own, although they may be true, or where I have some self-conscious, stuff. I think when you say that, it sort of, in understanding this, is the imposter syndrome simply because we're not allowing ourselves to believe the truth of who we are? We simply can't see it because the narrative we have adopted, whether intentionally or unintentionally, consciously or unconsciously, is that we're not that. We're not good at that. No, I don't embody that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it probably goes back to the cultural norms in which we were raised. I mean, we were both raised in immigrant families whose parents struggled to create a life for us in a different country. And along with that, I feel came this, you have to work really hard to earn your keep in this country. And I guess in a lot of ways for me, and maybe it's for you with the psychologist, is that like I work really hard at being a good mom. Like that is my focus. That is my day job, my night job, like my primary goal in life. The only purpose that I have is to leave this world with 3 decent human beings who are happy no matter what. Like that is my goal. And so I feel like maybe for you, like you worked really hard to be a psychologist. Like you did the work on yourself and continue to do the work on yourself. You did the book work, you did the clinicals, like you worked really hard and you felt each moment of that. And maybe that's where it comes in, where there's like one thing that we can pick to say, yeah, I'm really good at this.
Did you always feel that you were a really good mom? Because as I'm hearing you, I didn't always feel that I was a really good psychologist. I mean, I can say that now, but I think early on, right, there were moments like, what am I doing? I'm the worst. I'm not doing good for anybody in this work. I need to find a different career.
Yeah. And the funniest story I have is that I gave birth to 3 babies, and people would come to visit me in the hospital. And for whatever reason, I'm sure there's some explanation, I could not remember the names of my children. I just couldn't. Like somebody would ask me, oh, what are their names? I would be likely in a wheelchair. Parag would be standing behind me, and I'd just look at him. I would pray that he was standing somewhere in the room when somebody asked me what the names of my children are, because that was one thing that I could not remember. I mean, for days. And I named them. It wasn't like, it wasn't, it was just a thing. And so I felt like the worst mom in the world because I couldn't remember my children's names. And, clearly that went away. I don't confuse my children's names. Like I'm very intentional about looking at a child and calling them by their name. But I did not always feel like I was a good mom. But I think once they got to like 2 or 3, when all the children around us and all the parents were complaining about the terrible twos and the tantrums, and my children were not experiencing that. I was not experiencing that. I attribute it to the emotional intelligence work I did with them from when they were born. And so to really, understand and express and label their emotions and not react. So I think at that point I was like, oh no, I'm good at this. Finally, that's something I'm really good at.
I think somebody asked me the other day, like, how do I overcome imposter syndrome? And I was just like, stop growing. Stop doing new things. Stop growing, right? I do think that is a part of it when, as we move into novel situations or just learning to, do something new, that self-doubt and that uncertainty can also contribute to that imposter syndrome, right? Of again, looking at people that are in the field already or have been doing that and sort of comparing yourself to, where they are on some sort of scale. So it's like, well, maybe I get rid of this by just not growing anymore, right? Which is kind of silly.
I'm curious if you feel what percentage or if any of it is because of what we think other people are thinking about us doing that.
Yeah, I think that's a really big percentage of it. Um, I talk about this idea when we talk about the different ways in which we're conditioned, right? And so again, we come into the world, and as our parents are trying to raise us and socialize us, they give us a framework, right? They give us a model of how we're supposed to be, how we're supposed to behave, what we act like, look like, what our behavior should sort of, be. And as long as we're meeting that model, we get a message about ourselves that is heavily reinforced, right? At a boy, at a girl, good job, you're so loved, whatever it might be. However, when we're not meeting that model, right, when we're not behaving or we're not getting good grade, whatever it is, we're not getting a neutral message about ourselves. We usually get a very negative one, right? Um, that could be a spanking, a timeout, a criticism, a judgment, a feeling of shame, the removal of love, the rolling of the eyes, something that feels deeply disconnecting to a child whose only needs in those early developmental years are validation, love, connection, safety. And so I think we learn very early on to toe the line, to do what is expected. And again, we get put into school at a very early age, 3, 4, 5 years old. And society tells us to be better than everybody else and constantly compare ourselves to everyone around us. And you, in this really fascinating way, just kind of adopt this model that like my worth, how I can feel about myself, how okay I am, is very reliant on how others perceive me. And up until I had reflected on this, yes, how others judged me or felt about me um, felt extremely important. Part of that is also we, from an evolutionary perspective, it very much matters that we are a part of the tribe, right? That we fit into our tribe for our survival. So I understand that piece is there. But it's taken me a long time to sort of start the process of letting go of caring how other people perceive me, view me, even sort of grabbing onto an understanding that, like, even if I am being the best version of myself, they're going to see me through the lens of their own life experiences. And I know that that's something a lot of people struggle with. I'm curious, what has that experience been like for you?
Yeah, I think it was extraordinarily prevalent for a number of years, especially of my adulthood. Um, I will say probably about like 8 years ago, like the switch flipped.
Yeah.
I was too exhausted trying to be all of these things for all of these people that felt like was never satisfying for them. But the truth is, it was just never satisfying enough for me because I wasn't being true to myself. And it literally was like a switch got flipped. And I was like, I can't care what anybody else thinks anymore. They want to judge me, great. Go for it. You don't want to be my friend. Okay. Like I literally just had to let it all go in the flip of a switch in order to be able to, at that point in time, survive.
Mm.
But it allowed me to thrive afterwards once I was able to do that and really just focus on, yeah, being the best version of myself and doing the best that I could I actually think people saw intention more than results. And that for me was a beautiful experience. For somebody to be able to recognize your intention was this, even though that wasn't the outcome, because your intention was that, like, we're fine. Like, I understand. That I think for me was a really nice piece of letting go.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I don't think it was a switch for me the way you describe it. I think it has been more of a process, but I can resonate with the part you're speaking about of how absolutely freeing it is to do that. I mean, just mentally on one level, but to just not be carrying around that weight of the expectations, right? And I think a part of it for me was recognizing, like, even if I'm being the absolute most perfect version of myself, it's still not going to resonate with everybody. There are still people that are not going to like me, and that's not a reflection of me. If it is a reflection of me, like, okay, so what? And I mean, the confidence with which you can then walk in the world and where you can then invest that energy that you've freed up is really amazing.
It is so liberating. And it's not because I don't care what people think of me.
No.
It's just I can't carry that anymore. Yeah, that's what it is. I can't carry it anymore. And so being able to let go of that was so liberating of energy that was stuck, that it just freed up so much more energy to do so many more positive things.
The Dalai Lama said something to the effect of, I might get angry with you, but deep down in my heart, I can never be angry with you. Almost to say, like, you know, this human part of me can have its reactions and all of that, but like at the core of who I am, this is the real me. And, you know, that came up as you were talking about intention. You know, what is the intention with which we're deciding to live? I know that for me, my intention has always been to love, right? To be kind to others and to love them. I don't always act that way, right? But deep down in the deepest parts of me, like that is my intention. I think when I freed up this, like, who I need to be for other people and, you know, meeting expectations and being everything to everybody, I could align more with that intention. And now it just kind of flows out. I think people experience me now in that way, and it feels effortless.
And I think that's the beautiful line, you know, of spirituality and the human experience, is that when we're able to let go of our human stuff, which is, you know, which imposter syndrome is a great example, then it does in many ways grows our soul and kind of sets our soul free to be its true authentic self. And that is what people experience at such a high level. Like, you know, not to be boastful or egoic, but I can walk into a room and people know that I love them. It could be somebody who's never met me before. And they already know, like, this is where I can come to feel love and to feel accepted as who I am and to show up as I am and not be judged. And so this person is a safe space for me. And I can't ask for anything more than to be that in this world. That is an incredible place to be.
Yeah, I hear that. That's really resonates. And just energetically, right? What that contributes to the space or to other people is pretty profound. I think when we're in that space, the freedom of it, the just intentionality of it, the congruence of it, the experience I get is that because I'm not invested in having to strengthen any sort of version of who I am, any ego there, that it also creates an opportunity for other people to not have to do that also.
I love that. To really connect with you on a soul level.
Yeah. I think the way Ram Dass describes it is, there's nothing in me that's going to keep you trapped in your role.
To be that pure energy is just a state of total being. And when I say you aren't who you think you are, it's because you define yourself in terms of doing versus being. Knowing your thoughts, your body and what it does. You say, I'm a lawyer, or I'm an architect, or I'm a hippie, or whatever you are. You define yourself in terms of social roles, in terms of actions. How do I know myself? As if I'm a behavior studying myself from outside. The fact of the matter is when you go in and in and in and in and in and behind that role and that role and that role and that one too, you get to a place where you just are. Just pure isness. It's pure isness. Pure awareness.
And I think that we did an episode recently on therapy and, the purpose of that. But I think that's why we continue to do the work on ourselves, so that we can be that for others. And maybe that doesn't need to be the intention, but I do truly believe that as we work on ourselves, as we let go of our judgments, angers, preconceptions about ourselves, others, and the world, as we let go of our own attachments, we really do become an opportunity, a space for other people to reflect on themselves and do their own work.
Absolutely. No, I love that. And I think, and along those same lines, then to go back to kind of some of the examples you said at the beginning of, this woman who swam the English Channel and these things that are so extraordinary, but don't necessarily resonate. I wonder then when you can move from kind of that human field to the soul field, that on some levels, it's all like, well, of course I can do these things. I can do anything. I can go run a marathon. That'll be great. Because, yeah, we've let go of it all. And maybe those things surprise our human side, but our soul says you can do anything that you want.
Yeah, I'm laughing because this week has been interesting for me in that I've just been really reflective, and some days have felt really hard. And I think I've just been sort of sitting with these bigger questions in life about purpose and what is it all about sort of questions. And so I was speaking with my wife last night, and she's just so beautiful because she's really good at holding that space and just getting me to reflect. But anyway, she asked me something that I had to really give some thought to, and my response was, I was like, Christina, like everything I've ever set out to accomplish, I've done. And like even in saying the words, I had to like pause to like really let that sink in. And if that's true, then holy cow, what does that mean for what else is out there and what other potential? And how sometimes, like, yeah, it's our own limiting beliefs about what we're capable of that most get in the way.
And how powerful it is when we can shift out of this achievement mindset to the being mindset and just show up in each moment for the person in front of us, for the experience in front of us, and just to be the best version of ourselves. And for that to be the purpose, in a lot of ways, for me, that feels very extraordinary.
Yeah. I think you and I have talked about this, but I think this podcast feels like that for me. It feels so effortless to do. And there's never any part of my mind wrapped up in, is it good? Will people like it? It just feels so right. One of the things that comes up for a lot of people when you share with them that there's this possibility of letting go of that need to achieve, to feel a sense of worth, most of them will feel some fear and be like, well, if I'm not constantly criticizing myself, judging myself, being hard on myself, then I'll never get anything done. Then I'll never be motivated. Then I'll never accomplish anything.
Yeah.
I've battled with that too, of like, oh, I can't let up here. But this is a perfect example of when we let go of that, how we can function in the world. Like you said, how we can just be.
Yeah. And I feel in a lot of ways, I've said this before, like even in, work or starting my companies, is it's work. Like there's work, but if it's a struggle, you're doing it wrong. And it's so contrary to the way I was raised and to everything I've been taught. But I try to teach my kids that, and it's interesting to watch them. But like, even if they're trying to open a jar, like if you're struggling, you're doing it wrong. It's going to be easy. And then they'll just move something small, take a deep breath and let it out, and it opens. And it's like, that is what you must do with everything. And so much beauty comes out of it.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I can still stand to learn quite a bit there. Yeah. There's a full awareness of how I have adopted this narrative or model that the good things that come from hard work and struggle. And not that that's untrue.
Right.
But also understanding it doesn't have to be that.
It's not the only way. The other way's a lot more fun.
Right. Yeah.
Life does not cease from challenging you. And that doesn't change even if you awaken spiritually. You will get other challenges, different kinds of challenges. The only difference is, as you awaken spiritually, the way in which you respond to the challenges changes. And that is all important. How you confront the challenges of life, how you react to or respond to the challenges of life determines how you experience your life. How you experience your life ultimately is not determined by what happens to you, because most people think that that's the case, but how you experience your life, or what you call your life, is ultimately not determined by what happens to you. It is determined by how you respond to what happens to you. And how you respond to what happens to you determines what happens in the so-called future. How you respond now. Some people, whenever they are challenged by life, they behave as if there was something very wrong with their life, that things are not supposed to go wrong or be challenging. This is not supposed to happen. And this works on both a small scale and large scale. And you might have met people, and perhaps you were one of those people in the past, people who are continuously complaining about things. They're continuously not in alignment, continuously out of alignment with whatever is going on around them, situations and people and places and events. Either something is there that shouldn't be there, something is happening right now that should not be happening, or something is not happening that should be happening. Or I should be somewhere else, but I'm here, and that's a huge problem. I'm trying very hard to get there, but I'm here. Now, this sounds a little weird when I say it like this, but the sad fact is that many people live like that for most of their life. They are not aligned with what they are doing right now. Yes, they are doing it, but they are not fully in the doing because they'd rather be somewhere else. They would rather be already at the end of this particular activity. And when you're very much in that mindset, that means your life is stressful continuously. Stressful means there's a mental projection of where you need to be or should be, but you're here. So you're engaged in this activity, but you have certain thoughts that tell you either you already want to be at the end of what you're doing, or although you are doing this, you really should also be doing that and that and that, but you're doing this. A dreadful way to live.
What for you, because you said you came from that sort of programming of, the immigrant family and having to work hard. How did that shift for you? How did that evolve so that you moved more into this place of like, no, I can, because I really admire that in you. That capacity to just kind of sit back and allow it to be.
I just got too tired, Carlos. Like, I wasn't going to survive if I kept doing things the way that I was doing them. It's the same thing with letting go of what other people think of me. It's just, I was too tired. I was beyond exhausted. I felt like I would not survive. I had 3 little children who I was their everything because, like you said, human beings need caregivers, and I would not have survived if I had not start to let go of everything. And the more I let go, the easier it became. The more I practiced letting go, the easier it became. And then when I came up against struggle and realized I was struggling again, doing that, taking a deep breath, taking a step back, maybe this isn't the way. And waiting, I can't tell you the value of patience.
Mm.
It's almost been like, so many, for me, this is only my perspective on the universe. So many things have to align for the path to clear. Everybody has to do their work. And if for some reason somebody's not, or something happens, well, then the universe is going to shift. And that shifting takes some time. So although I would like this to happen now, for whatever reason, it's not. So I can take a step back, I can take a deep breath, and I can just wait. And when it does happen, it's so much more extraordinary than I thought it was going to be. Because I didn't force it, because I didn't try to make it happen, because I didn't struggle for it, because I gave people the space that they needed. I gave, time and patience, which is also work on myself. And just doing that over and over and over again in every experience because I was too exhausted to keep going the way I was. It was a surrender. It was in the truest sense. I just had to surrender.
Surrender is very, very subtle and very, very powerful. And you will find out that it is the entire spiritual journey. What surrender is, as we've discussed it, is you are in a predicament. It's called reality. Right now, where almost all of us are, I'm leaving the masters out, is we are conscious and we are aware of what is unfolding in front of us. The world is coming in, we're experiencing it. The mind is reacting to the world that's coming in because we stored reactive triggers inside ourselves due to our past experiences. The heart is reacting to the reaction of the mind, or we have stored so much within our heart that it's leaking. It just comes up with stuff all by itself. It doesn't need the outside world to come in and stimulate. The alternative is to clean up the mess. You are drowning. Listen to me. There's an analogy I use, all right? You have been drowning. You're screaming. You're helping. The water's in your nose. The water's in your mouth. You're choking. Everything. Oh, my God, you're drowning. And I'm standing there watching you. The water is 6 inches thick. You are laying deep, 6 inches deep. You are laying down, face down, nose in it, thrashing around. I'm drowning. I'm drowning. So all the water is splashing up into your face. That's all that's happening. There's no drowning. There's no reason to drown. You are causing yourself the entire problem that you are having. There is no problem. You are sitting on a planet spinning around the middle of absolutely nowheres. There is an energy flow that flows up inside of you. Most of you don't know too much about it yet. Some of you do. You've had experiences. If you will practice what we're talking about, every single one of you, this energy flow will become a totally natural thing to you, just like your breath or your heartbeat. It's something you actually experience. It's real. The energy flows up. It can't make it past your blockages. Therefore, it manifests exactly in accordance to the blockages it hits. And that's what you now experience as your normal state, right? It's not a normal state. It's the state that comes because these are the blockages you stored. So the question is, are you going to tolerate that you are making your life hell? That you are causing yourself to drown, you're causing yourself to have emotional problems, you're causing yourself to not be happy, and then you're going outside and demanding that the world be somehow that you made up, that if it's that way, I'll be okay. No, you won't.
People will often ask me, as a psychologist, what do you think is like the one thing that really helps sort of move people or change people or motivate people? And what I often find myself saying is pain. Like when the pain gets bad enough, things will shift. When we're done struggling, when we're sick and tired of being sick and tired, that truly in my work has been the biggest mover and shifter of things for people in their lives. And maybe I think if we could shift our understanding or perspective on when things get hard, and instead of kicking and screaming all the way through, recognizing that like this too is necessary for the evolution of my life. Because I can totally relate, right? Just in the way, like, it's just too damn exhausting. It's too damn hard. I need to find another way. And, it's so fascinating to me when you truly open yourself up to the universe, to God. The last couple weeks, and especially the last couple days, leading up to 2 days ago, life just was feeling so hard and confusing and frustrating and all of the things that we often go through. But instead of allowing myself to get caught up in it, to struggle with it. I noticed a change, a shift from before, which was like, I'm just going to sit and try to observe as much as I can and to listen. And part of that listening was even sitting one day and sort of asking for guidance. Please help me understand what purpose this is serving in my life. And Supna, it feels like every conversation I've had in the last couple of days, every interaction has been the answer.
That's so beautiful. I find that to be true over and over and over again. And it's so amazing how when we can surrender, when we can find that space, that the universe just does speak to us through everybody and every experience around us in just the most amazing ways. Things that our little brains can't even fathom, that just, they feed our soul and bring this light to us. That is that reminder that this is the path.
Yeah.
As are always these conversations for me.
There was a friend of mine, her name was Portia Nelson. Portia passed away a few years back. She lived up in Seattle. And she was at a seminar, and they asked her to, and they asked everyone to write on a 5x7 sheet of paper or card the 5 chapters of their life. They only wanted to give them 5x7 cards because they didn't want them to get too wordy. And Portia Nelson sat down and wrote these words about the 5 chapters of her life. And I thought I would share them here with you. They're so beautiful. She said, chapter 1 of my life. I walk down the street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I'm lost. I'm helpless. It isn't my fault. And it takes forever to find a way out. Chapter 2 of my life. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I'm in the same place. It isn't my fault. And it still takes a long time to get out. Chapter 3 of my life. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it there. I still fall in. It's a habit. My eyes are open. I know where I am. It's my own fault. And I get out immediately. Chapter 4 of my life. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. Chapter 5 of my life. I walk down another street.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Podcast, the Human Experience Podcast. We're so grateful to have shared this time with you.
As we continue recording new episodes, we'd love to hear from you. Share your thoughts, questions, or topics you'd like us to explore, and tell us about your own spiritual journey. We want to connect with you.
Give us a call at 800-791-3884 and leave us a voicemail. You might just be featured on a future episode of The Podcast.
Thank you for being part of our community. Until next time, keep walking your path with peace, love, and purpose.